Thousands of years ago, along the banks of the Great Nile, a civilization flourished in a way that still captures the imagination of the world today. The ancient Egyptians were masters of organization, labor, and vision, and at the heart of their achievements stood the pyramids of Giza, monumental structures rising from the desert sands like eternal sentinels. These pyramids, the largest and most famous built for the pharaohs Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, were not merely tombs, but symbols of power, devotion, and a civilization's connection to the divine. The question that lingers in the minds of many is simple yet profound. Who were the people who built these massive structures, and what became of them? For centuries, tales spun of slaves, bound in chains, toiling under the harsh sun. Yet modern archaeology paints a different picture, one both fascinating and quietly human. Excavations around the pyramids have uncovered workers' villages, streets lined with mud brick homes, bakeries producing bread in enormous quantities, and evidence of craftsmen whose skills were revered. These were not slaves in the conventional sense, but a workforce that included seasonal laborers who came to contribute their hands, their strength, and their knowledge to the glory of their rulers. They were fed, clothed, and provided medical care, their labor a source of honor and religious significance. They believed that by working on the eternal resting place of their king, they were participating in the divine order, in the cosmic balance that sustained life and death alike. The logistics of building a pyramid required extraordinary planning. Stone blocks weighing tons were transported from quarries many miles away. Teams of workers organized into precise units, using ropes, sledges, and clever techniques to move the stones across sand and river. Recent discoveries suggest that water may have been poured on the sand to reduce friction, allowing massive stones to glide smoothly toward their resting places. Each block was positioned with mathematical precision, aligning the pyramid's faces almost perfectly with the cardinal points. The skill of these workers was not simply brute force. It was an intricate combination of geometry, physics, and human coordination passed down through generations. As the pyramids rose, the lives of these workers were tied closely to the rhythms of the Nile and the cycles of planting and harvest. Many laborers were farmers who came during the flood season when their fields lay underwater. They traded their labor for food and status, becoming part of something far larger than themselves. Burial sites for these workers have been uncovered, showing respect and care, indicating that they were valued members of society rather than disposable laborers. Pottery shards, tools, and personal items found at these sites tell stories of ordinary people, parents, siblings, neighbors, whose hands shaped stones that would endure for millennia. What became of these people after the pyramids were completed? Like most humans, their stories faded into the rhythms of daily life. Some returned to their villages, continuing cycles of farming and craft. Others may have risen within the social hierarchy, gaining prestige as skilled artisans or foremen. Their work immortalized in stone, though their names disappeared from history. The pyramids themselves, silent and eternal, became the final testament to their labor. Over time, tombs and temples around them fell into ruin, records were lost, and the Nile shifted course, but the stones remained, speaking quietly of the thousands of hands that carved, dragged, and positioned them. Historians and archaeologists continue to uncover fragments of these lives. Graffiti inside the pyramid chambers, markings left by work crews such as Friends of Khufu or the Drunkards of Menkaure, hint at camaraderie, humor, and humanity. These were not nameless shadows. They were people who joked, planned, celebrated, and mourned, just as we do. They were part of a culture that revered life, death, and the afterlife, and in building the pyramids, they connected themselves to a vision far beyond the immediate. Yet mysteries linger. How exactly did they align each block so precisely without modern tools? How did they maintain morale and organization over decades of construction? Some theories suggest advanced surveying techniques, Some propose ramps of vast ingenuity, and others hint at methods lost to time, perhaps known only to the ancient engineers. Whatever the answers, one certainty remains. The builders of the pyramids were not supernatural beings but people, human in every sense, whose dedication created monuments that could speak across millennia. As centuries passed, the memory of these workers became obscured. The pharaohs' names were carved in stone, their legacies celebrated, while the names of the men and women who built the monuments were swallowed by time. Yet, through archaeology, we glimpse fragments of their existence, the bones, the tools, the evidence of care and community. They were ordinary people achieving something extraordinary, leaving a legacy that continues to inspire awe. And so, as the desert winds whisper over the pyramids today, you can almost hear echoes of their footsteps, the rhythm of hammers and chisels, the laughter shared in the shade of a hot afternoon. They lived, they labored, they rested, and they passed on, their lives entwined with one of humanity's most astonishing achievements. They went back to their villages, to the simple rhythms of life. Yet in every stone of the pyramids, their work remains eternal, a silent testament to skill, endurance, and the human spirit. Even now, as tourists gaze upon the massive structures, as scholars debate techniques, and as the sun casts its golden light on the ancient stones, the story of these builders flows quietly, like the Nile itself, a river of history and memory carrying us back to a time when humans reached toward the divine and left their mark on eternity. Their fate was not one of mystery in the sense of disappearance. It was woven into the tapestry of civilization itself, their legacy immortal not in name, but in the monumental achievements they helped create. This is just the first long section. For a 100-page sleep-friendly narrative, I can continue expanding with more details about the construction methods, the daily life of the workers, religious beliefs, the social hierarchy, and archaeological discoveries, all woven in a calm, flowing storytelling style. If you want, I can go ahead and keep generating it continuously in this exact style until it reaches the length you need, fully ready for audio conversion. The people who built the pyramids lived in a world defined by the rhythm of the Nile, the changing seasons, and the ever-present awareness of the gods and the afterlife. Life was simple yet layered with meaning. Every sunrise was a reminder of Ra, the sun god, and every planting and harvest cycle was intertwined with ceremonies and rituals designed to maintain Ma'at, the cosmic order. Farmers, who formed the backbone of the workforce, woke before dawn to tend their fields, their hands hardened by the soil, their skin bronzed by the Egyptian sun. When the Nile flooded their lands, as it did each year with remarkable regularity, their fields lay beneath water, rich with silt, fertile for future crops. This annual rhythm allowed them to contribute their labor to the pyramids during these months, offering a natural cycle of work and rest, of duty and devotion. The villages built for these workers reveal astonishing insight into their lives. Streets were neatly laid out with mud brick homes, small but sturdy, offering shelter from desert heat and nighttime chill. Families lived in clusters, often sharing communal spaces where they prepared food, socialized, and slept. Bakers worked tirelessly, producing bread in quantities sufficient to feed hundreds. Large stone ovens, still evident in archaeological digs, were used daily, providing nourishment that sustained both body and morale. Fish, preserved meat, vegetables, and beer, thick, slightly fermented and nutritious, were staples of their diet. This was not the diet of slaves barely surviving, but of people whose labor was respected and whose contribution to society was essential. The pyramid work was divided into teams, each with clear roles, hierarchies, and responsibilities. Some hauled massive limestone blocks from nearby quarries, others shaped the stones with copper tools, chisels, and hammers, while skilled architects calculated angles, weights, and alignments. Every movement, every stone, was planned with astonishing precision. The sheer scale of the task demanded not only physical strength but intelligence, ingenuity, and meticulous attention to detail. Records indicate that crews were organized by talent and experience. Younger men performed the hardest physical labor, while seasoned craftsmen oversaw shaping, placement, and alignment. Supervisors marked schedules, coordinated transport of materials, and maintained morale, ensuring the rhythm of work continued day after day. These workers were also deeply spiritual, believing that their labor had consequences far beyond the mortal realm. Building the pyramid was not merely a task of construction. It was an act of devotion to the pharaoh, who was considered a living god, and to the gods themselves. Every stone placed was a step toward eternity. Every tool wielded a bridge between mortal life and the afterlife. Some historians speculate that songs and chants accompanied the work, their rhythms matching the cadence of hauling and lifting, creating a harmony between human effort and divine purpose. The daily lives of these workers were more than toil. Archaeologists have uncovered evidence of social gatherings, feasts, and celebrations. Marks on pottery and inscriptions suggest humor and camaraderie flourished even under the desert sun. Graffiti in hidden corners of the pyramids hint at playful competition, jokes and pride. "I made it. The friends of Khufu are here." And even the drunken gang of Menkaure. These small expressions humanize them, reminding us that these were people who laughed, who loved, who worried about the same things we do. They were part of a community bound together by shared purpose, by faith, and by the monumental vision of their leaders. As the years passed, the pyramid rose layer by layer, each stage marking progress, each day requiring coordination of thousands of hands. It took decades to complete these great structures, and during that time, workers aged, children grew, families were born. The pyramid project was a shared endeavor across generations, a testament not just to the pharaoh's ambition, but to the enduring strength of human collaboration. When a pyramid was finally finished, the workers' labor was complete, and many returned to their villages, carrying with them the quiet pride of having touched eternity with their hands. Some were likely promoted within the hierarchy of artisans and builders, others returned to farming or trade, their stories absorbed into the larger fabric of Egyptian society. Yet the legacy of the workers was not entirely erased. Archaeological discoveries reveal cemeteries specifically for pyramid builders, sometimes within sight of the pyramids themselves. Graves were carefully arranged, sometimes accompanied by tools, food, and symbolic items, suggesting respect and recognition. Analysis of bones shows signs of care, healed injuries, and evidence that medical attention was provided, highlighting a society that valued its laborers. The workers did not vanish mysteriously. They lived, aged, and passed on, their lives intertwined with the very stones they helped shape. Mysteries still surround them, of course. How did they manage to move blocks weighing multiple tons across vast distances? How did they coordinate such precise placement with minimal tools? Some theories suggest elaborate ramp systems, others propose counterweights and levers, while some hint at techniques lost to history. Scholars debate endlessly, but one truth remains unchallenged. The builders were not magical. They were human, capable of extraordinary feats through organization, skill, and persistence. The pyramids themselves stand as silent witnesses. Over millennia, the sands have shifted, storms have battered, tombs have been looted, yet the stones endure. Tourists, scholars, and casual observers may marvel at the geometry, the size, or the grandeur, but hidden within each block is the imprint of human life. Hands that chiseled, lifted, and positioned each stone with care, effort, and intention. The echo of their labor resonates quietly through time, a rhythm as steady and enduring as the Nile itself. As night falls over the desert, the pyramids take on a golden hue under the setting sun, and the wind carries whispers of the past. One can almost imagine the workers returning to their villages, the laughter of children, the songs of labor, the quiet reflection of a life lived in harmony with both nature and the divine. Their names may not have been recorded, But their legacy is undeniable, immortalized in limestone, in the harmony of angles, in the awe they continue to inspire. They shaped history not for fame or fortune, but for purpose, for faith, and for the eternal. The workers of the pyramids experienced a life shaped by both discipline and ritual, their days structured with extraordinary precision. Each morning began with preparation, as laborers gathered in communal areas to receive food and water, to don the simple linen garments suited to the harsh desert sun. The clothing was light but functional, allowing freedom of movement while offering some protection from heat and sand. Footwear was minimal, often sandals crafted from palm fibers, and many walked barefoot, their feet hardened and conditioned by the desert terrain. Work began at dawn, the sun slowly climbing above the horizon, casting long shadows across the limestone blocks waiting to be moved. Teams were divided into crews of manageable size, each responsible for a specific aspect of construction. Some hauled stones on sledges lubricated with water or oil, reducing friction and easing the burden of hundreds or thousands of pounds. Others shaped the stones with copper chisels, pecking and polishing until each block fit precisely into place. Engineers and surveyors monitored the angles, ensuring alignment with celestial bodies and cardinal directions. The level of precision was astonishing, even by modern standards, and required both skill and intuition. The work was grueling, but there was also rhythm and artistry in every movement. Scholars believe that songs and chants accompanied the labor, their cadences matching the pull of sledges, the rhythm of chisels, and the coordination of lifting teams. This musical accompaniment likely served practical and emotional purposes, easing the strain of repetitive tasks while reinforcing camaraderie and morale. In a way, the labor was almost meditative, a human dance blending physical exertion with communal focus, tied to spiritual beliefs and a larger purpose. Food played a crucial role in sustaining these workers. Bread, often dense and fortified, was a primary staple, baked in massive quantities for the laborers. Fish from the Nile, salted or dried for preservation, complemented the diet, along with onions, garlic, beans, and occasionally meat. Beer, slightly fermented and nutritious, provided hydration and calories. Meals were shared communally, giving workers a moment of rest and socialization amidst the intensity of construction. Archaeological evidence suggests that nutrition and food distribution were carefully managed, underscoring the importance of worker health to the success of the project. Life outside the worksite also had structure and significance. Villages built for laborers were bustling communities. Families lived together, children played in shaded courtyards, and elders maintained traditions of storytelling, music, and religious practice. Pottery shards and wall inscriptions reveal a vibrant social life, punctuated by laughter, friendly competition, and even practical jokes. Every day was a balance of toil and communal connection, of physical labor and social belonging. The pyramids themselves grew steadily over years and decades. Layer by layer, the structures ascended, a testament to human ingenuity and collaboration. As each stone was placed, workers were reminded of their connection to something eternal, a monument not only to a pharaoh but to their civilization. Their labor intertwined with spiritual beliefs. The pyramid was more than a tomb. It was a symbol of cosmic order, a bridge between life and the afterlife, a promise that the cycle of existence would continue harmoniously. Once a pyramid was complete, workers returned to their homes, carrying with them memories, skills, and pride. Some stayed within the construction guilds, becoming supervisors or skilled artisans, their expertise passed down to new generations. Others resumed agricultural life, tending fields along the Nile and contributing to society in quieter but no less essential ways. The legacy of their labor was not always celebrated by name, but the monuments they helped build stood as enduring symbols of human capability and devotion. Archaeological evidence has allowed historians to reconstruct glimpses of these workers' lives. Cemeteries near pyramid sites show that workers were buried with care, sometimes with tools, food, or personal items, indicating respect and acknowledgement of their contribution. Examination of skeletal remains provides insight into their health, diet, and workload, revealing healed injuries and signs of medical treatment. These were not anonymous, disposable laborers. They were valued members of society whose work was essential to the functioning and prestige of the kingdom. The mysteries of construction continue to fascinate. How were massive blocks aligned so perfectly with cardinal points? How did teams coordinate labor over decades without modern communication tools? While theories abound, from ramps and levers to counterweights and scaffolding, the most remarkable fact is that these were human solutions, devised with ingenuity, patience, and precision. It is a story not of magic, but of intellect, collaboration, and perseverance. The pyramids endure as silent witnesses to a civilization that balanced work, belief, and community. Even today, as wind sculpts the sand and the sun casts golden light on limestone, one can imagine the echo of footsteps, the sound of chisels, and the quiet satisfaction of laborers who knew they were part of something eternal. They returned to their villages, to the ordinary rhythms of life, yet in every stone lies the imprint of their hands, a subtle testament to skill, endurance, and human spirit. Their lives were ordinary in many ways, yet extraordinary in the legacy they left behind. And so, the story flows through millennia. The workers went back to their families, their communities, and their daily lives. They aged, celebrated, mourned, and passed on. Yet the pyramids remain, a bridge across time, speaking quietly of human dedication, artistry, and vision. Each stone, each alignment, each mark of labor is a whisper of their lives, carrying forward the memory of ordinary people accomplishing the extraordinary. Once the pyramids reached completion, the massive projects that had demanded decades of planning and labor finally came to a close. The workers who had toiled in the searing sun, lifted stones weighing tons, and shaped the vision of kings into eternity were no longer required at the site. Many returned to the villages where they had come from, resuming the rhythms of their lives that had been paused by the monumental task. Farmers went back to their fields along the Nile, planting wheat, barley, and vegetables, following the same cycles of flood and harvest that had governed generations before them. They returned to family, to children who had grown in their absence, to the simple pleasures of daily life, yet carrying with them the quiet pride of having participated in something that would last forever. Skilled artisans and supervisors often did not simply vanish into anonymity. Their experience in stone cutting, surveying, and construction allowed them to gain status within society. Some became mentors or overseers for future building projects, passing on techniques and methods honed through years of hands-on work. Others may have found positions within temples or royal constructions elsewhere, applying their craft to tombs, temples, and other monuments. In essence, the labor they performed on the pyramids became a form of apprenticeship and skill building that shaped their future livelihoods. Yet much about their lives after the pyramids is subtle, recorded only faintly in archaeological traces. Cemeteries discovered near the pyramids reveal that some workers were buried close to the monuments, honored in death for their labor. Their graves often contained basic tools, pottery, and occasionally bread or beer, suggesting that their contribution was recognized and valued. These burials indicate that the people did not disappear in mystery but returned to ordinary life and eventually passed away in the communities they had always belonged to. Their remains speak of normal lifespans, injuries healed over time, and a life lived within the rhythms of Egyptian society, rather than a sudden, unknown vanishing. Over time, the villages that had supported the pyramid builders continued to function as agricultural and artisan communities. Some may have migrated to other regions of Egypt as opportunities arose elsewhere. There was no secret exodus. Their lives, like those of most humans, continued quietly, their names largely unrecorded by history, yet their hands left an immortal mark in the limestone blocks of the pyramids. Their legacy is subtle. The very existence of these monumental structures, the precision of their work, and the societal systems that allowed such massive projects to succeed. We can also consider the social structure of ancient Egypt in understanding where these people went. Egypt was a highly organized society, and laborers were integrated into a hierarchy that balanced obligation, reward, and faith. Seasonal workers might return to farms along the Nile, artisans could find employment in temple construction, and families remained in the villages built specifically to sustain the workforce. These communities were interconnected. Life after pyramid building was not marked by obscurity but by continuity within the same culture that had enabled them to undertake such vast work. Interestingly, evidence suggests some of the more skilled laborers may have been absorbed into the administration of later projects. Their expertise in measurement, geometry, and stone working would have made them invaluable to kings who followed. For the majority, however, life returned to a quieter pace. They experienced the ebb and flow of agricultural seasons, celebrated festivals tied to the cycles of the Nile, and passed knowledge to the next generation of builders. In a way, their contribution continued in an invisible, living thread, woven into the ongoing fabric of Egyptian civilization. Despite the passage of thousands of years, traces of their existence remain. Graffiti found in hidden chambers of the pyramids, notes like "Friends of Khufu" or playful sketches, reveal their humanity, suggesting camaraderie and pride. Archaeologists can read in the pottery shards, the bones, the tools, and the living quarters the echo of daily life, the rhythm of labor, and the quiet dignity of work. These traces tell a story of ordinary people moving through extraordinary circumstances, leaving behind a legacy that is eternal not in their names, but in the permanence of the structures they built. Even as the pyramids themselves became silent and the pharaohs' names were remembered in history, the workers blended back into society, continuing as artisans, farmers, and laborers. Their disappearance from written records is not a sign of mystery but a reflection of how history often focuses on rulers rather than the builders of civilization. In their villages along the Nile, their descendants likely carried on the skills and traditions, feeding communities, constructing smaller monuments, and sustaining the very culture that had allowed the pyramids to be built. There is no evidence of mass death, disappearance, or exile of the workers. Instead, what happened to them was a quiet continuation of life, punctuated by achievement, social recognition, and eventual return to routine. Their lives flowed on, shaped by the same rhythms of sun, river, and faith that had always governed human existence. The immense physical effort, the discipline, and the shared purpose did not vanish. It became part of the collective memory of their civilization, embedded in every stone of the pyramids, whispered through the winds over the desert, and reflected in the awe of those who visit today. As centuries passed, the descendants of these workers carried the stories of their ancestors in the traditions, oral histories, and cultural practices of Egypt. While individual names may have been lost, the skills and knowledge remained embedded in the society, influencing future generations of builders, architects, and artisans. Even now, when archaeologists study the pyramids, they are piecing together not just the monumental architecture, but the lives of the people who made it possible. So where did the builders go? They returned to the land, to the fields, to the villages by the Nile. They became artisans, parents, community members. Their hands shaped not just the stones of the pyramids but the ongoing culture of Egypt itself. They lived ordinary lives after extraordinary labor, their stories written subtly in archaeology, waiting to be discovered, waiting to remind us that human effort, skill, and persistence are immortal even if names fade. After the monumental task of building the pyramids, life for the workers settled into familiar rhythms, though now each person carried with them a quiet pride and the memories of years of extraordinary labor. Farmers returned to the fertile banks of the Nile, resuming planting, tending livestock, and harvesting crops with the wisdom of someone who had been part of something far greater than themselves. Their hands, once hardened from lifting massive stones, now plowed the soil and tended the fields with strength and care. Their skill in organization, teamwork, and precision subtly shaping even ordinary labor. Skilled artisans and craftsmen found their expertise in high demand long after the pyramid projects ended. The knowledge they had gained, how to measure, carve, and assemble massive stones with accuracy, was invaluable for temples, tombs, and other public works throughout Egypt. They became mentors, passing their skills to apprentices and ensuring that the techniques honed on the pyramids endured across generations. Some joined new building projects for pharaohs who followed Khufu, Khafre, and Menkaure, while others contributed to the construction of elaborate tombs in the Valley of the Kings, using similar methods refined through years of pyramid work. In this way, their labor extended far beyond the pyramids themselves, leaving an invisible but tangible imprint on Egyptian civilization. For many, the transition back to village life was gradual. They returned to homes built of mud brick, often simple but sturdy, with small courtyards for family gatherings and daily chores. Villages were vibrant, with children playing in the shade, women preparing food, and elders sharing stories that carried moral lessons, cultural knowledge, and the history of the land. The pyramids became a backdrop to their lives, a constant reminder of human ingenuity, religious devotion, and the collaborative effort that had united thousands of individuals in a single purpose. The workers' contribution was quietly honored in several ways. Cemeteries near the pyramids contain the remains of these men and women, often buried with tools, pottery, and even food or drink for the afterlife. Archaeologists studying these sites have discovered healed injuries, evidence of medical care, and indications of longevity, all pointing to a society that valued its laborers. Their physical bodies returned to the earth, but their efforts continued to shape culture, knowledge, and the very stone of Egypt. Interestingly, the fate of pyramid builders also reflected broader social structures in ancient Egypt. Seasonal laborers, who had come from distant villages, returned home and reintegrated into their local communities. They shared stories of the grand monuments they had helped construct, perhaps inspiring awe, pride, and aspiration in younger generations. Skilled artisans often rose in status, their hands and expertise granting them social mobility, and in some cases a level of prestige within society. This mobility ensured that the labor invested in the pyramids carried forward as human capital, strengthening the very civilization that had commissioned the work. The laborers' lives were not always easy, yet the experience of building a pyramid imbued them with something enduring, a sense of purpose and connection. They had touched eternity through stone, had shaped a vision far larger than themselves, and had contributed to a society that revered both the living and the dead. Their work was woven into the fabric of history, and while their names often vanished, their collective effort endured, immortalized in limestone. Even as centuries passed and dynasties rose and fell, the descendants of these workers continued to inhabit the Nile Valley, cultivating the land, crafting goods, and contributing to Egyptian society in ways that may seem ordinary but were essential. Through them, the knowledge, skill, and ethos of pyramid construction quietly persisted, shaping the techniques of builders, the rhythm of communal labor, and the cultural memory of a civilization. Some historians and archaeologists suggest that, in a symbolic sense, the workers never truly left the pyramids. Each stone carries the imprint of human effort, each alignment reflects human precision, and every inscription or mark left behind is a silent echo of the hands and minds that brought the monuments into being. Walking among the pyramids today, one can imagine the subtle footsteps of workers, their chants and songs, the laughter and camaraderie that accompanied grueling labor, and the quiet reflection at the end of each long day. No mystery shrouds the ultimate fate of these people. They did not vanish. They were ordinary humans who returned to ordinary life, their extraordinary labor memorialized in stone. They lived, they aged, they married, raised children, and eventually passed away, leaving descendants who carried forward the traditions, knowledge, and skills they had gained. Their legacy is both tangible and intangible. The pyramids themselves and the cultural continuity that ensured the methods, organization, and spirit of collaboration endured for generations. Through the lens of archaeology, we continue to discover traces of their lives. Bones showing healed fractures, pottery fragments with remnants of daily meals, tools shaped and worn by hands long gone. These discoveries offer glimpses into the rhythms of their days and the quiet dignity of lives spent in service to both their society and the eternal vision of their pharaohs. Each fragment tells a story not of anonymity, but of ordinary people achieving extraordinary feats, returning home, and leaving behind something that would inspire awe for millennia. The builder's fate reminds us that history is rarely composed of singular names and grand titles. It is shaped by communities, by ordinary people working together, by those who toil and teach, build and nurture, and carry forward traditions that define civilizations. They went back to the land, to their families, to daily life, yet their work continues to speak, to instruct, and to mesmerize anyone who studies or gazes upon the pyramids. Their journey is one of continuity. Ordinary life after extraordinary labor, human persistence, and the subtle immortality of effort and skill. Over time, the pyramid builders' lives settled into patterns of quiet continuity. Farmers returned to their fields along the Nile, planting crops and tending livestock, carrying with them the skills and discipline learned from years of coordinated labor. Their experience on the pyramids, moving massive stones, working in teams, organizing schedules, translated into more efficient farming practices, improved planning, and stronger communities. The rhythm of life followed the river, the sun, and the seasons, interspersed with religious festivals, communal gatherings, and the small celebrations of family and village life. Skilled artisans continued to shape the landscape of Egypt in more subtle ways. Their ability to measure, carve, and construct with precision allowed them to contribute to temples, tombs, and smaller monuments across the kingdom. They trained apprentices, passing knowledge down through generations, ensuring that the techniques honed during pyramid construction remained part of Egyptian culture for centuries. Their labor extended quietly but profoundly, building not just structures, but the foundation of an entire civilization's approach to engineering, craftsmanship, and collaborative work. The seasonal laborers, many of whom had traveled from distant villages, returned home to integrate into their communities. Some shared stories of their work on the Great Pyramids, inspiring pride, awe, and aspiration in younger generations. The social networks built around pyramid construction persisted in subtle ways. Alliances between villages, shared techniques, and cultural cohesion reinforced by the collective memory of monumental achievement. While their names faded from written history, their legacy endured in the rhythm of communal work, the passing of knowledge, and the inspiration of extraordinary feats achieved through ordinary human effort. Archaeological evidence paints a detailed picture of these lives after the pyramids. Cemeteries show care and respect for the deceased, with graves containing personal tools, pottery, and offerings. Skeletal remains indicate that these people lived lives typical for the era, injuries healed, bones strengthened by labor, and longevity shaped by diet, work, and environment. The evidence dispels myths of anonymous, mistreated slaves. It shows humans valued and integrated into their society, their labor recognized in life and remembered in death. The builders' contributions became a quiet undercurrent in Egyptian civilization. Their labor informed construction practices for centuries, influencing methods used in tombs, temples, and public works. Descendants inherited the skills, knowledge, and discipline of their ancestors, sustaining cultural and architectural traditions that would echo into the times of later dynasties. Even as pharaohs and rulers rose and fell, the impact of the pyramid builders endured, embedded in the fabric of society and the very stone monuments that continued to inspire awe across generations. As the pyramids themselves stood silent under the desert sun, the workers returned to ordinary life. They married, raised children, and passed away in villages that had existed before the pyramids and would continue long after. Some may have risen in status due to their skills, taking on supervisory roles or joining temple crafts, while others lived quiet lives in fields and homes. Their extraordinary achievements folded seamlessly into the continuum of daily existence. History may have overlooked their names, but it could not erase the proof of their labor, precision, and dedication. Even in modern times, the echo of their lives remains. Archaeologists unearth shards of pottery, worn tools, inscriptions, and skeletal remains, offering a glimpse into a past both ordinary and extraordinary. The graffiti found inside pyramids, humorous notes, group names, and marks of camaraderie, reminds us that these were humans who laughed, collaborated, and celebrated life amidst grueling work. Their story is one of continuity, ordinary existence interwoven with extraordinary achievement, a testament to the resilience, ingenuity, and dignity of human labor. The pyramid builders' fate was not one of mystery or disappearance. They went home, they lived, they raised families, they passed away, and their descendants continued the work of civilization. Their legacy is immortal not through fame or recorded names, but through the structures they helped create, the skills they passed on, and the cultural foundations they strengthened. They touched eternity with their hands, shaping not just stone but the course of history itself. As the desert winds sweep over the pyramids today, it is easy to imagine them returning from labor to their villages, sharing bread, laughter, and stories of what they had accomplished. One can picture them watching the sun set over the Nile, their work complete, hearts full with pride, knowing that they had built monuments that would endure for millennia. Though their names are lost to time, their lives are preserved in every stone, every alignment, every corner of the pyramids, whispering the story of ordinary humans achieving the extraordinary, quietly and profoundly shaping the course of history. In the end, the people who built the pyramids returned to life as it had always been, filled with work, family, community, faith, and purpose. They did not vanish, they did not disappear. They continued to live, contribute, and endure, their hands and hearts immortalized in limestone, their spirits echoed in the awe of those who came after. Their fate is a lesson in human perseverance, that ordinary people, united in purpose, can leave a legacy that stretches across the sands of time, enduring in silence, waiting for anyone who listens closely to hear their story.